Well, with the addition of Black Widow and Loki, we now have 27, almost 30, 27 chapters of the MCU to rank worst to best. This is sure to be awesome and a little controversial.
Hey, take it easy, man.
Can't wait to dive into it with you. How would you rank all 27 chapters of the MCU? Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my ranking of all 27 chapters of the MCU worst to best. Now, there is going to be spoilers in here for Loki, for Black Widow, and, everything else in between. It's a ranking. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So, if you haven't seen Black Widow or Loki or anything else and you don't really want a ton of spoilers, check out the movies you're missing, come back, and let's rank these movies together worst to best. So I'm really excited to dig into this with you, and I'm excited to have two brand new Marvel chapters, one movie, one show, to add to this ranking. How would you rank them? Let's talk.
Makes you sound super smart.
I am smart.
I know.
Okay.
27, Thor, The Dark World. 26, Captain Marvel. And 25, The Incredible Hulk. Now, even though this is the bottom block, even my least favorite of the MCU movies, I still find entertaining and enjoyable. That's one of the best things about the MCU. I like all the movies, including these bottom three. I just come to these bottom three the least. I mean, the best part of Thor, The Dark World is Thor and Loki. It's just awesome having those two together. The villain is blah and the movie's kind of blah, but Thor and Loki are pretty great, and it's fun to go back and watch the movie just for that. Or Captain Marvel. Yeah, again, it's not my favorite, but it does have some pretty entertaining moments, and I think Incredible Hulk is a little bit underrated. I like Edward Norton's take, and I like the grittiness of this movie. So even though these are in the bottom, it doesn't mean I dislike them. It's one of the great things about the MCU. 24, Thor Ragnarok. 23, Iron Man 2, and 22, Iron Man 3. Now, this is the block where I normally get in trouble. Like those Iron Man movies, I think they're good. They're not as good as the original or seeing Robert Downey Jr. in the team-up movies. I put them here because Iron Man 2's, it's okay. It's fun and it's entertaining. I liked Iron Man 3. I did not like the twist that Ben Kingsley wasn't the Mandarin.
My name's Trevor Slattery.
I was kind of sad because his performance of the Mandarin was stellar. I loved it. My goodness. But where I always get in trouble with this block is Thor Ragnarok.
Hey, take it easy, man.
But it fits in this block because I feel like this movie had a lack of balance. Like I said about my bottom block of MCU movies, I don't despise Thor Ragnarok. I think it's a fine movie. Chris Hemsworth does a great job in his performance. I love seeing this variant of Loki's final character arc. Like, it was very cool to watch this character grow. And this movie, Korg, is absolutely hilarious.
My name is Korg. I'm kind of like the leader in here. I'm made of rocks, as you can see, but don't let that intimidate you.
I love meeting Valkyrie. She's such a great character. There are a lot of good things in Thor Ragnarok, but I think what puts it here is that, like I said, lack of balance. It's so heavy. I mean, you have the destruction of Asgard, and Thor's the one that has to bring about Ragnarok. Learning it's Asgard the people, not Asgard the land, and allowing his homeland to be destroyed in order to save his people and stop his sister Hela from growing in power. The fact that Thor loses all of his friends. Where's Sif? And he loses his father. Like, there are these heavy emotional beats. And then I feel like we move over quickly into something slapstick and funny. And it's not that the slapstick stuff isn't good, it's just Infinity War has the balance I'm talking about. Thor and Rocket are a great team up. They are hysterical. Every moment they're on screen, I am laughing. But then they have those moments where you feel the weight of what's going on. So I hope that makes sense. I just feel like with Thor Ragnarok, they put in so much of the slapstick, I didn't quite feel the weight of what was going on and Thor having to take the throne of Asgard by the end. But I still do enjoy the movie, even though it's in this block. Number 21, Ant-Man and the Wasp. 20, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and 19, Ant-Man. I put this in this block. This is my don't have to think block. These are those fun MCU movies that I can just pop in and enjoy. Yeah, they got problems, they got issues, but these aren't the type of movies where I care about those problems or issues. I could put those movies in and just not think about it and enjoy what's on the screen. Number 18, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. 17, Black Widow. So this is where the first of the new movies fall. Now, I put Black Widow here at number 17 because I'm still not entirely sure what to do with it. So my whole family was out for 4th of July week and we went and saw Black Widow, and it was a good movie. I enjoyed the movie. I thought the action was a lot of fun. It was interesting to get to know Black Widow better as a character and to meet her pseudo family, which inspired her to come back and take care of her Avenger family. Like, there were a lot of elements in this movie that I overall thought were pretty good. I had a hard time though, because they wanted to kick this movie off, or kick Phase 4 off with this movie. This is definitely a Phase 3 movie. It really only fits best pretty much right after Civil War. And so it's hard because I had to put myself in that mindset. And when you've waited, as long as you've waited for a new MCU film, and they pick this to be the thing that kicks off Phase 4, but it does nothing to build up Phase 4, except for like one post-credit scene, which is fine. It's just a little lead into the Hawkeye show, which I was already looking forward to seeing anyway, but it doesn't really build up Phase 4. I did like it though. I just haven't seen it again. And normally with an MCU film, I'm right there ready to see it again, but I really don't want to drop the $30 extra to watch it on Disney Plus, and I just haven't made it out to the big screen to watch it a second time. And I'm betting you I would rank this higher if I see it a second time, because my expectations will be different. They'll be in a slightly different place. Now, like I said, I loved the action. One of the things I did not like about the action is there's this scene where Taskmaster shoots a missile, hits the car that Black Widow is in. It freaking explodes and rolls, violent rolling, smashes into like a metal post on a bridge, and she comes out of that. It's like, what? And she fights the Taskmaster. To me, that devalues the super soldier serum. It devalues Thor being a god. She's supposed to be a mortal, and there's a lot of other things where she survives so many strange things. Now, my brother-in-law sitting next to me was like, well, she's a highly trained spy. It's a Marvel movie. Let it go. There is truth to that. The part where he says it's a Marvel movie, let it go. And so I try to let it go. But still, it's like, okay, if you have Captain America, if you have these characters that genuinely have powers, and then you have Scarlett Johansson's character who's not supposed to have those powers, it's like, ugh. Now that said, the Taskmaster was interesting. I like it when Black Widow faced the Taskmaster, because one of the great things about her facing the Taskmaster is she's literally facing her past. This was Draco's daughter who she thought she killed, and her ledger was dripping red. This is that thing she felt the most guilty about. She had to face it. She had to move on. She had to let it go, and she ends up helping the Taskmaster. So I thought that was an incredibly interesting plot line, and I really enjoyed that whole aspect of it. Literally having Black Widow face her past with somebody that can mimic her moves perfectly. So I thought that was really interesting. So this movie really did have a lot of interesting elements in it, a lot of things that I enjoyed.
You got fat.
Smelling water, Wayne.
And I'm betting you I will rank this movie higher the next time I go and I watch the MCU films in chronological order, and I watch this film where it fits in the timeline and my expectations are all right in the correct place. I'm betting you at that time I will move it up. I've only seen the movie once right now, and this is just kind of my raw feelings and impressions. That's why it's right here in the middle of my list. 16, Captain America, the First Avenger. 15, WandaVision, and 14, Loki. You notice the MCU shows are kind of clumped together. I didn't intend to do that on purpose, but there's still that part of my brain that is trying to decide where do the shows fit with the movies in my ranking. But Loki definitely hit number 14, because spoiler alert, number 13 is going to be Thor, the first Thor movie. I really enjoy the first Thor movie, and I really enjoy this Loki show. Loki is definitely my favorite of the Disney Plus series, just because of how deep it is, how deep it goes into the idea of time being this loop. And I was rewatching the season finale of it today, where we get Kang, or He Who Remains, you know, that variant of Kang. And so it promises a great future to the MCU. It was amazing to look at time in that loop, in that circle, going around that castle, and all the branches just branching off. And it's like, wow, does that mean we really will, for Spider-Man No Way Home, have the whole live action Spider-Verse. How awesome would that be? Does this really mean the X-Men franchise exists now in the MCU and it's one of those branches? And so all of that is incredibly fascinating, but they also did a great job with Loki, I think. I think they did a great job with his character arc. Like I said, the original variant that we know from the MCU had a great character arc and giving his life being killed by Thanos in Infinity War. This Loki is the one that just came from the Battle of New York at the end of Endgame. And they trim his whole little variant timeline. But it's really interesting because he looks at his life as it plays out on that film strip. He even sees his death with Thanos. This idea that time is a loop and it keeps on repeating. And he's the god of mischief, of chaos, of change. He's all about change. And so we really see throughout the MCU, his character is caught in a character loop, making the same types of choices, the same type of treachery, same types of things, so much so that in Thor Ragnarok, Thor is able to predict and add that into part of his plan. The fact that his brother Loki is gonna betray him. And so it's all about growth. And we really see like the Loki in the MCU timeline when he gives his life and Thanos snaps his neck. We saw that Loki grow. And now we watched this Loki literally step outside of the loop of time itself and grow as a character and not want a throne for the sake of having a throne, but because he cared about Sylvie's well-being. He cared about somebody else's well-being above his own. Even though Sylvie is him, let's not get into that. It gets really confusing. Somebody in my comments talked about, it is gross, Sylvie falling in love with, or Loki falling in love with Sylvie. It's like he's falling in love with himself. But somebody was saying, but also looking at that Sylvie variant, he's seeing the best in himself. So it's interesting because Sylvie wants to kill He Who Remains so that chaotic and the timeline, the multiverse can be saved and there can be free will. I agree with the idea of there being free will, but her idea to kill him is totally out of vengeance and vengeance motivated and not for the greater good. Whereas Loki, I disagree with his choice to rule in the place of Kang, but I agree with the fact that he doesn't want an evil time conqueror going around and destroying time. And I like the fact that his heart has grown. So it's a very interesting, nuanced, complex ending that it gave to that first season of Loki. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I can't wait to see what happens in Ant-Man Quantumania, and I can't wait to see what happens in Loki Season 2. And I bet you, when I see those things, it's really going to take this Loki series and raise it up on my ranking here. 13, Thor. Number 12, Spider-Man Homecoming, and number 11, Iron Man. Now, I love the first Thor. I love Kenneth Branagh's directing. I like the whole Shakespearean feel that he gave it. I love seeing Anthony Hopkins and Chris Hemsworth playing off of each other, the introduction to Loki, and I love this whole storyline that Thor was unworthy of Mjolnir because he was full of himself, utterly and completely full of himself. So when the hammer lands on Earth, it really is a sword in the stone moment. It took till the end of this movie, breaking his pattern of pride, and he put others' lives ahead of his own and was willing to lay down his life for Jane, lay down his life for his friends. Greater love has no one than this. And so he was worthy, and Mjolnir skyrockets to him. So I love that moment. I think that is so incredibly well done. And it's one of the many reasons that I love the first Thor movie. And I can get why people don't love this one as much, but I really do like this first one. And I love Spider-Man Homecoming because Tom Holland as Spider-Man is probably my favorite live-action on-screen Spider-Man thus far. I feel like he embodies the best of Peter Parker and the best of Spider-Man. There's a lot of moments in Spider-Man Homecoming that are great, like almost every scene with Michael Keaton as the Vulture. But I also love it when all that rubble is on top of Peter and he's got to look at the reflection of himself and know he's more than just the suit. And so he says, "Come on, Spider-Man," talking to himself, and he lifts up all of that concrete. It's such a great moment. There's a lot of great things in those movies. The top 10. Coming in at number 10, Avengers. Number 9, Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 8, Black Panther. And number 7, Doctor Strange. This first group in my top 10, it's kind of hard to break down because really, They're all so good. I love Doctor Strange for Benedict Cumberbatch's performance. I love the storyline of him being humbled and learning it's not all about me. I did a video about that called The 3 Keys to Power. If you'd like to check that out, I'll have the link down there in my description. I thought it came out pretty good, so definitely check that out. Black Panther's got some really interesting villains. I was really kind of sad when they killed off Andy Serkis. He was more insane, maybe a little less nuanced, but nonetheless an incredibly interesting villain. I get why they had to kill him off. I just wish they didn't, because I'd like to see more of his character. But as a whole, it had a great story, it had great villains, and it made it very compelling. I love both Avengers movies, but when it comes to Age of Ultron, it gets the edge because I loved Ultron, I love James Spader, I love the journey that it took Tony Stark on and how that impacted him from Age of Ultron kind of up to Infinity War. So I think it did a really good job taking Tony Stark's character and taking it forward through a lot of the fear and the things that he's facing. Number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy, and number 5, Spider-Man Far From Home. These are great movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite MCU movies, and to this day it's one of my biggest surprises. I really didn't think it was going to be good, and now it's like one of my absolute favorite MCU movies. I absolutely love Guardians of the Galaxy, and Far From Home is my favorite live action Spider-Man movie. I just love the journey that it took the character on, coming out of being gone, being dusted for 5 years, and seeing him now have to adapt to this world, but also a world without Tony Stark, his mentor, his second, or actually third father figure who's passed away. We don't know his relationship to his biological father in this version, but we do know he had an Uncle Ben, and now you have Tony Stark, who is kind of a new father figure. So we see him adjusting to that, and that's one of the things I liked about Homecoming, was seeing Tony Stark and Peter Parker working together. And so even though he has to come into his own identity, and he's not gonna be the next Iron Man, I still love those moments where Happy was watching Peter Parker create his new suit, and some of his mannerisms, like with the holograms, was just like Tony Stark from Iron Man 1, and having those little reminders. So it had these great moments. So I love Spider-Man Far From Home and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
Number 4, Captain America Civil War, and number 3, Captain America The Winter Soldier. I used to have those more interchangeable. Sometimes Civil War would be on top, sometimes Winter Soldier would be on top, but really I've come to this conclusion. I like the semi-groundedness of Winter Soldier quite a bit. Now, I love Civil War. The whole idea that the Avengers divide. United we stand, divided we fall. And we see them fall right before their greatest enemy arises. And I like the fact that at that time, Zemo, he's not a powerful dude at all, but he knew exactly how to play them. He knew exactly how to bring them against each other. And so it was very interesting to see the cracks form and the importance of grace and forgiveness over vengeance, because that's the whole thing we learn with Black Panther, where we see him learn, like, no, I'm not gonna take vengeance. And he submits Zemo to justice instead of taking out his own personal vendetta, because he saw how that consumed. So like all of that I thought was great, but I do love the groundedness and action of Winter Soldier. It's like the best of a Jason Bourne movie, the best of your favorite spy movie, and then adding that superhero flair to it. So I think Winter Soldier definitely remains one of my favorites. And it also took Captain America, such a bright character, put him in a more gritty world where he's trying to figure out how to fit in, and kept him as bright as they did. I think they did a great job with that. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War, and number 1, Endgame. These two movies that concluded the Infinity Saga were fantastic. I love Infinity War for the non-stop action. Once that movie started going, and it starts going like from the opening credits, it doesn't let up. I love the pace of this movie. I love how they broke the heroes down into different groups, all accomplishing different things, that were all moving towards the same goal, and some of them didn't even realize that's exactly what they were doing. But it's very cool the way they paired off all the groups of Avengers together. Their chemistry was great. It made everything flow so well, and it had that great cliffhanger waiting for the next Avengers movie. I mean, I remember when everybody disintegrated and Thanos won, my theater was silent. And then in the end credits where, you know, it said the title of the movie, Avengers Infinity War, and then it dusted away, somebody behind me yelled, "Too soon!" It was perfect. I loved it. So things like that, I think, are fantastic and so well done, and I love Endgame, because Endgame is the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. So taking an entire decade worth of stuff and bringing it to this ending, I thought was fantastic. I love how they used time travel, and, you know, they explained it, how you don't go back into the past and change the past. Really, it's creating these branched timelines. And now we got more of that with the TVA and Loki. Like, some of those branched timelines are just sort of pruned by the TVA. We saw that happen in that whole first episode of Loki. So a lot of interesting things where Loki adds to that lore. So I did like their logic with time travel, because I also didn't want anything in my principal MCU timeline to be changed, like Back to the Future style or X-Men Days of Future Past style. I love it as it is, and I didn't want to see it changed, and I'm glad they didn't change it. So it was so cool, and I love the added emphasis they put on it, because Tony Stark didn't want to lose his daughter. So we need to go into the past. We need to get these things. We need to change our present. But we can't change the past, because I can't lose what I found. And so I thought that was incredibly interesting. And now you have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You have WandaVision, a little bit of Far From Home, that kind of show us the world adjusting to everybody disappearing and then 5 years later coming back. So Endgame still remains on top for me, because not only is it a great conclusion, but so far it's laid some really good groundwork, and they've done a good job building off that. So what did you think? How would you rank all now 27 chapters of the MCU, worst to best? I'm excited for your ranking in the comments below. While you're doing that, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next MCU ranking. It's coming sooner rather than later, so hit that bell. You'll be notified when that next ranking drops. Also, be sure to check out my MCU playlist and all the other MCU Marvel videos I've done. I've done a lot of DCEU videos, because look at this wall behind me. I love both. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you're notified when that all drops. Explore the other great things that I have here on this channel. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.